Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to do client-side form validation using JavaScript. And I'm going to show you how to use HTML5 to do form validations and how to do it in JavaScript. So I'm going to create the HTML here. And if you guys don't have the extension called Live Server, you'll want to download that so you guys can follow along. So I did a Shift-1 Enter to generate this HTML. I'm going to just call this form validation. And then I'm going to add a little bit of styling to it just to show you guys how to display error messages and kind of give some styling to the form. I'm going to link stylesheet.css and we're going to link the JavaScript as well. Okay, so here I'm going to have a section with a class of form container. Inside here we'll have a form. And we'll leave the action and method blank for now. Actually, the action will just go to index.html. So if we do that, it'll go straight to its own page. You guys, and we'll use method as get so we can see what the values are like. Okay, so let me right click and open this with Live Server. All right, cool. So I'm going to have an input tag here with a type of text. And then I'm going to give this name of text input. We're going to get rid of the ID. And I'll just give it a label of text. Actually, we don't even need a label. Okay. And I'm going to give the form some styling. So we have a form container class. We're going to give this a background of EEE, width of 80%, margin auto. Let's push it down as well, 50 pixels auto. And if you guys are wondering how to style a form, I have created a video which is called HTML form with CSS styling, and I'll link it in the description below if you guys are interested in seeing that. So, okay, moving on from that. After that, we will give it some padding. And that should be it. I don't really care too much about anything. And let's just give it some box shadow. Okay, so that should be it. And I'm going to create a comment here saying form error style. Form errors, that's fine, form errors. This is where we're going to have our form errors displayed. And we'll give it some styling as well. So above the form, we won't worry about that now. We'll be using that with JavaScript, so that's fine. Okay, so let's give this a placeholder of text. All right, so one more thing, let's add a submit button so that every time we want to enter in the data, we can just quickly submit it. So I'll just do input type button. Let's do submit. Let's give it a value of submit. And I'm going to give this a class as well of submit. And I'm going back to CSS. I want to just give it some quick styling and push it to the bottom and to the right. So we're going to push the button down a little bit. We'll do margin bottom 50 pixels. And then the submit class. Let's give it a little bit of styling. Background none, border none. And actually, we do want to give this a background of 444. And let's change the color to E. Give it a little padding. I'm going to just use position absolute. And then push it to the bottom. Give it some spacing and to the right. And our form container, we need to say position absolute, relative. Okay, so that's it for the styling. Let's go to the actual validation. So in a text, I'm going to just give it a comment here. In a text box, input box, so in any input box, we can make it required just by giving it the required attribute. So let's say I try to submit this. It'll say, please fill out this field. And if I type anything in, you guys will see the value right here. Okay, so we can also limit the text to however many characters we want. So say, we're expecting some kind of text, we can give it a min length of, let's say, at least 2, a max length of 10. To be in quotes. Okay, so let's say I typed in just one character. Okay, it'll give you this error message, which is good. And then let's say I go beyond 10. It won't actually let me go beyond 10. It'll only let you put 10 characters. Another thing we can do is give it some pattern. So this is regular expression. If you guys are not familiar with it, I'll try to explain it. Regular expression, in here, we just want to give what we're expecting. So we're expecting letters. Let's say we're only expecting letters and not numbers. From the beginning to the end of the string, and then we'll say as many characters as possible. Grab all the characters is what that plus sign will do. And so let's say I try to enter a number. It will say, please match the requested format. And we can also give a title. So if that pattern does not match the string, it'll actually display this title. Say invalid format, letters only. So let's try this again. It'll say invalid format, letters only, right below it. So I would say that's it for the text input box. Let's go on to password. This is very, very similar to text. So I'm not going to go too much into it. Just wanted to show you guys something else on how to do password. Okay, so we'll say placeholder password. We'll say required as well. And let's say the min length is 6. So it wouldn't make sense to put a max length here. Make a comment here saying password. And let's put some break tags. Okay, let's say I try to create a 3-letter password. Let us comment this input out. 4-letter password. Okay, it'll tell you that this text, lengthen this text to 6 characters or more. And you are currently only using 4 characters, which is pretty cool. Not bad for HTML validation. So that's all I would say to use for password. So let's go on to number type input. Yeah, I'll just comment it out. It'll be easier that way. Okay, I'm going to comment here saying number and create a input of type number. Give it a name of number. Get rid of the ID. So we'll need these input tags later when we have JavaScript, when we're using JavaScript validation. Okay, so for number, let me show you guys. So if you click here, you have these 2 arrows, and you can only enter in a number. It won't let you enter in any letters. So we can also put a max and min here. So let's say we want a max of, so the max and min here, the way it works is the max number can be, let's say 10, and min can be 2. So if I put anything below 2, it'll give me an error. It has to be greater than or equal to 2. If I put anything greater than 11, it'll say it has to be less than or equal to 10. So I'm going to set autocomplete to off here, so we don't have any pre-existing values showing up. So let's say I want to set an email, and if I hit submit, it'll say please include the @ symbol. If I include the @ symbol, it says please enter a part following the @ symbol. So after that, it doesn't do any more validation. It'll submit it. So that's it for the emails. Not too much going on there. Let's go on to the date. This one's pretty useful, I would say. So if we do input type date, give it a name of date. Okay, so if we click on this drop down, it'll give us the current month and the current day. If you click on this dot, and let's say we want to change the month or year, we're able to do that. So now in the input, we can give a min and max date. So the format is, let me hit submit. The format is year, month, day, which is what we need to give it. So we can do 2019 July. Let's say July 1st is the min, and the max is July 21st. Okay. So now it'll fill in the month and the year. So it'll force us to only select the days between July 1st and July 21st. So it won't let me click on the current date, won't let me change the month, which is pretty fantastic to force the user to pick a range of date. We can also give a default value. So we can say 2019 07 05. And it'll fill it in for us if none is selected. So that's pretty awesome. That's it for the date. I'm going to comment that, and I'm also going to put a comment here called date. This is just for future reference for you guys. Okay. Let's do the file input type. So I'm going to make a comment here saying file, input, type file. Give this a name of file. So in the file, we can do several things. So if we click on choose file, let me go to downloads here. We can pick all files. But let's say you wanted to force the user to pick only MP4 files. So we can say accept dot type MP4. So now if I click on choose file, it'll only show MP4 files. You can go in here and just change it to all. So that's just one type. It will still let you submit it. It's a pre-validation. So let's say you wanted to accept only images. So you could say accept image / asterisk, and you can say if you click on choose end file, it'll only have selected image files, which is pretty cool. So if I can select one, just hit submit, and we'll get the file here, file name. So that's it for file validation. We can do a lot more with it in JavaScript. Let's go to radio and checkboxes. So they're very similar, except radio buttons, you can only select one. So let's have 2 radio buttons of 1. Let's copy this, paste it right below, and let's give this a value of 2. And I guess these need labels, don't they? So we can say radio 1, and let's put a break tag. Say radio 2 below the input. All right, so let's put required on both. If we press submit, it will tell us to please select one of these options. If we select on one of these options, we'll get the value of radio, which is 1. Let's show you guys one more, and let me leave a comment here. I'm going to just comment this. Actually, I'm going to copy this, and then just paste it below. I give a comment here saying checkbox, paste this, and change the type to checkbox. And let's change the name also to checkbox as well. We can keep the value the same. And let me just also change this to checkbox just so you guys don't get confused. Okay, so if you put required here, what it will do is please check this box if you want to proceed. Checkbox 2, it will still say please check this box if you want to proceed. So required here won't actually work. So this will require actual JavaScript validation. We can, with checkboxes, you can select multiple. So that's it, guys, for the HTML5 built-in validation. Let's go and do JavaScript now, which is, I think, the more fun part. Okay, so I'm going to uncomment all these inputs. And I'm going to show you guys something that we're going to add an attribute to the form called noValidate, which means that it will get rid of all the browser validation that's done, which is like this min, max, etc. We're gonna handle it directly with JavaScript. Okay, so let me just add some break tags. And let's copy and paste that and put it below each and every input. Okay. All right, guys, that should be good. And let's give some placeholders for all these so that we know which one is which. So we have password. Let's give a placeholder for number, placeholder attribute. The same thing for email. And date. Date won't actually take an attribute. Okay, and then let's do this. We don't need the one for file. That should be good. So let's add the noValidate attribute here in the form. Let's say I hit submit. It will actually submit all of these. And let's take off the min and max because those will still remain date. Okay, cool. So now in the JavaScript, the first thing we're going to do is create a constant called validations. And here I'm going to have an object. And inside the object, I'm going to have several different regular expressions. So one is going to be for number. Let's call it integer. It'll be whole numbers. And we're going to add some regex, regular expression here. So this is going to just be a number that can contain 0 through 9, as many digits as you want. And yeah, from the beginning to the end of the string, it will count the numbers. That's all we're checking there. And then we'll have we're going to call alphanumeric, which can be a number or any letter. So in here, we'll have caret, brackets, plus, and $sign. Then we'll do A through Z lowercase and A through Z uppercase, 0 through 9. So any pattern containing A through Z or a number will work here. And then we're going to have just a strict letter, which is just going to be alpha. So in here, same thing. And it's just going to be A through Z lowercase and A through Z uppercase. And I believe we have one more. So I just included an email in here just to show you guys. Don't take this as a foolproof one because it doesn't work for all of them. So here we can expect in the beginning 0 through 9 or A through Z or uppercase. As many characters. And then we're going to follow that by a @ symbol. And then after that, we're going to follow that by an all lowercase. So if it's like Gmail, Yahoo, that's usually the standard. And then we're going to say as many characters there, and then a dot, and then com. So that'll be our email validation. Okay, so now we're going to grab the form. So we're going to say create a constant called form. We're going to say document.querySelector. Document.querySelector. We're going to just say form. So now we grab the HTML form tag. And we're also going to grab, let me create a div in here, which is going to be our error, where we show our error box. So I want to show you two ways of showing errors, guys. So one is showing an error right below each input. So I'm just going to show you one for right below the text. So here, I can create a span element, give it a class of error. So let's go in the style.sheet.css. In the error class, all we're going to do is add box sizing of border box. And then we're going to say, let's give it a width of 100%. And we need to put this inside the div because we need to match the widths of the input and the span. Because we're going to give a parent width to the div. Just right in here. We'll just inline CSS and use width. We'll say 200 pixels. Okay. And one more thing in the error class. Let's give this a background of red. And I'm going to do a quick styling to the input type text. That'll be a width of 100% as well. And we'll also apply the box sizing border box. That will remove like the margins and padding. Okay, cool. So let's say, let me add something to the error box to make sure it's the same. It is not. Got it. We need to add a display block here. There we go. Okay, so it's going to be hidden because there's obviously nothing inside the span. Yeah, so I'm just going to close out of that file. So now we're going to grab the error, which is the error span tag. So we're going to say const error document.querySelector as well, since it's a class, dot error. Okay, so we have that. Then we're going to create an error array and just set it to empty for now. So now we're going to say form.onSubmit equals function. I'm going to pass in the E variable here, which is for event. We're going to say e.prevent default, meaning whenever you submit the form, it won't actually submit it. It will hit this function first. So, you know, in cases like this, you're going to want to use like Ajax from jQuery or create an HTTP request like post or get in your JavaScript. But we're not going to worry about that here. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is get the error and get the inner HTML of it, and we're going to set it to empty. So it's going to reset every single time the form is submitted. Next thing we're going to do is grab the form data object. So if we say we're going to create a constant called form data equal to new form data and pass in the form variable from above. Okay, so now let's grab the first input. We can say text input is equal to form data.get equals to text dash input. In the get function, it's just a getter for the form object, and you're going to pass in the name attribute. So whatever the name attribute you have for these inputs is what you would want to pass in here. So let's say the first thing you want to check is if text input is empty. So we're going to say that, and we're going to do error array.push And we're going to say text input cannot be empty. Okay, so now we're going to want to display it, right? So we're going to loop through our error array, and we're going to say if error array is greater than 1, greater than 0 really. So we can simply just say error array dot length, just leave it like that. So if it's 0, it's going to be a falsy value, so it won't actually go into if statement. If it's not a 0, it'll hit true. So error array, we're going to use a for each loop dot for each. Then I'm going to write a callback function in here, and we're going to pass in data variable in the function, and then we're going to do error.innerHTML plus equal, and then we're going to just simply output the error array. So this is going to be error, not error array, it's going to be just be data. So we're going to use this error array for whenever we have an error message showing above the form. It wouldn't make sense to do it here, but just for tutorial purpose, I just wanted to show you guys two different methods of doing it. Okay, so let's say we hit submit. So it says text input cannot be input, cannot be empty. So it disappears. If I submit something, it does not disappear. I need to reset it. Got it. So I need to reset the error array here in case it actually has a value from the previous submit, since it doesn't get reset. Okay, so that's what you would want to do if anything is empty. You would want to check it like this, because everything that's passed will actually show up in a string. Okay, even the date will show up in a string. So I'm not going to show you guys how to do an empty one anymore. I'm going to go on to a little bit more difficult things, like using these regular expressions that we created. So below this form.onSubmit, we're going to create several functions. So we're going to say integer input, and we're going to simply just say input.match. And in here goes the regular expression. So we can call the validations constant and get the integer object key. And same thing I'm going to do with alphanumeric input, and return input.match, and this will return either true or false. So validations.alphanumeric. And it's good to have these in an object. It's very standard that you would want to keep these somewhere so you can use them all across your system. You know, you can just import it, and it's a great tool to have always, not so that you don't have to rewrite it. Next thing we have is just alpha. Same thing, input.match, validations.alpha. Same thing with email as well. I know it's a little tedious. And you don't actually have to do this. You could just directly call it in your if statement, but this is just kind of looks just for clean code, just to show you guys. Input.match, validations.email. Okay, so let's forget about this. Let's say if text input, okay, so we don't need to do that. We want to say text can be alphanumeric. So exclamation point, if it's not alphanumeric, we'll pass in the text input. We will push it to the error array, and we will just display invalid format. So let's type in, I guess, some symbols. Invalid format. Perfect. It will accept any set of numbers and letters, any combination. So let's say you wanted to add a min and a max length here. So how would you do that? So here you can actually specify the min and max by adding the curly braces. And let's not do it there. Let's do it in the alphanumeric. So let's say the min we wanted was 1 and the max was 5. So in here, let's do 2. Be easier. Okay, so if I do 1 here, it'll say invalid format. Just one character of anything will be invalid format. If I do 2, it'll be valid. If I do more than 5, it should be invalid. This is a great way of, setting min and max right in your regular expression. And what you could do is if you didn't want to set it there, you could just, in your function, just add it dynamically, which if you know what you want ahead of time, this just makes more sense. Especially for like password. I'll show you guys password. So let's get rid of text input. We don't need that. Leave it as, we'll change it to password. And get will be just password. So if password, let's say we only wanted a min of we wanted a min of 6 characters, but no more than like 60. So we could change that to 6 and 60. And then here, we can simply just say alphanumeric password. Same thing, just pass in the error array, push some text, valid format. So let's come in here and do less than 6. And of course, it's going to pop up there. We would obviously move it. All right, guys, so now what I'm going to do is move the span. So I showed you guys you can put it here, but I'm going to put it above now. Just because the reason I wanted to show you guys is it looks good UI-wise, and it's good user experience. Let's put it above the form. Let's add a div. And inside the div, we're going to have a UL, unordered list. We'll create a class of error. All right. So everything stays the same. So let's say this is invalid. It will actually show up here now. So that's awesome. Move on from password to number. So let number equal to form data.get. I think I just named it number. Let me just make sure. Yes, number. So number, we can also do the same thing. So we still have our min and max, but they won't actually work. Here, it'll keep letting us type. Okay, so in the integer, we're obviously expecting only an integer. So we can just force it here, 2 to 10, min and max. And it's the same thing as alphanumeric, so I'm not going to go over that again. Just wanted to show you guys that's possible. And also just having type number, we can't type in any letters. So we don't need to validate for alpha here. Okay, so in the email, I will show you guys that one. Email. Okay, if email function turns false, so if it's not a valid email, error.array.push invalid email. So let's try typing in something invalid email. Let's try to type in invalid email. Cool. So it will break if you do something like .net, but any .com emails will work. And you can also add numbers. Next thing we want to use is the date. So the date won't have any regular expression. The date we are going to, let's say you wanted to compare dates. I'll show you guys how to do that. So we can say form data.get date. And let's get today's date. Today is equal to new date. And so the date comes in as a string, but we want to convert that into a date object when we're comparing our dates. So here we're going to say date is equal to new date, pass in date. And then we're going to pass it in one more time because of the time zone offset that I'm in. So I'm in Central Time, so I need to offset that. Otherwise it brings in a value that's a day behind from my input box. So date is equal to new date. I'm going to get the date from here above. So it returns it is an object. Get time plus date dot get time zone offset and multiply that by 60,000. And I just looked this up. I did not know how to do this. I looked it up. And so here we want to compare dates only, but when we actually do the new date object, we're going to get the time as well. So in order to get rid of the time and not compare the time actually, we need to just say date.set hours and just do 0, 0, 0. The same thing for today. Set hours. Okay, so now we can compare dates. There's one more thing we got to do in our if statement. So we're going to use the unary operator in front of our date object, and we're going to say if date is not equal to unary operator today, we'll push to the error array. Push, and we'll say input date is not equal to today. Okay, so let's see how that works. So let's give a date here. Sorry guys, this should not be a capital Z, it should be a lowercase z. Okay, so now if I enter in today's date and hit submit, it's equal. But let's say I type in input yesterday's date, it will say input date is not equal to today. So we know it's working. Okay, so that's just one example of date comparison, and I would honestly recommend some date libraries like date.js libraries, which are out there like Moment.js. I think it's a lot easier to use those than actually doing this vanilla JS, because this kind of took me a little time to research. Not just straightforward to compare today's date with the input date. Here we can also we can set the min and max as well. We can say if the date input is less than whatever date, and if it's greater than, you can say it's not a valid date. So if you want to compare dates, what we can do is create a new variable here, and let's say min date. Let's create a new date object. And here we can manually enter in 2019 will be year, month, 0705. And let's give a max date as well. Equal to new date. And let's say 2019 0721. Let's do something more than, because today's the 31st now. So let's say if today's date is greater than min date. So let's say 24th. Okay, so input date is not equal to min date, what it should. And it's actually input date is greater than. min date. So let's go over that logic one more time. So if we grab the input date, and then we have a min date, which is July 7th. So today is the 31st. So if that is greater than the min date, then we need to say input date is greater than the min date. So let's say we click on July 2nd. So nothing happens. So let's say if the input date is less than the max date, input date is less than the max, less than select that, and we get that. So that's a good way of comparing dates. And actually, you would want to put the plus sign to make it, to convert it. Basically, what that unary operator does, it converts it into a number, so it's comparable. But it was able to compare it either way, so I'm guessing it converted it. Yeah, it works. Okay, guys, so that's it for the date object. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this. So here, let's get the file object now. File name attribute. Let's change this to file. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys what the file object will have in the console. So I'm going to right click console, have it open here, choose file, downloads, say I submit that. So here we get the file name, last modified date, and last modified date, and we get the size. So what you would want to validate here is the file type and the file size. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, in the file size, we're gonna, for the file size, let's create a const, say, and the file size is given in bytes. So let's just say 100,000 bytes or 10,000 bytes, just to make it simple. If file.file size is greater than file size, kind of confusing. Okay, we're gonna push to the error array. We're going to say file size is greater than 10,000 bytes. And we would want to obviously convert that into mega or gigabytes. So let's say we create a file, we choose a file, upload that. It should not be file size, it should be just size. Okay. So if we compare file.size greater than file size, we should get an error. File size is greater than 10,000 bytes. And let's just make sure. Okay, cool. And let's add another error, because I wanted to show you guys how it would look like if we displayed more than one. So if now the file type, right? So file.type is not equal to image/JPEG. I think that's what the file type was of that image I uploaded. So we'll error array push invalid file type. All right, guys, so just to show you guys two different validation errors at the same time, I'm going to have an image.png/png and a file size that is 0, so anything bigger than that will show this. Just show you guys how it would look like. We hit submit, file size, and it would look like that, which is not good. That is because we are not displaying it in a list. So we can say, we can use template strings here. Okay, so in here, we can just write the data variable right in here. So let's say I wanted to do that again, submit. It will show them in a list. All right, guys, let's go on to the radio button here. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly because it's pretty simple. So let radio equal to form data dot get equal to radio. And the only thing we can do here is we can either check if it's empty or if there's an option selected. So we're just going to check if it's null, which is what returns if nothing is selected. So we can just say not radio, which null is a falsy value. And we can push it to the error array and just say radio is not selected. So if we hit submit, it'll say boom. So let's do the checkbox as well. Checkbox, and here, so checkbox the difference between that and radio is checkboxes can have multiple selections. So instead of using get, we got to use get all to grab all the checkboxes. And here we're going to get an array returned. So checkbox.length. Going to just use the not operator, and we'll just say checkbox is not selected. There you go. So if we select on both, disappear, select on one. There you go, guys. So that is HTML validation and also JavaScript validation. The JavaScript one is more reliable, and that's what you would want to use for best practice. And you also want to validate all the same things on the server side as well, because you never know when a value can get changed by a user. You never know what the intentions are. So I think my next video will be to show you guys server side form validation. If there is a specific language that you guys would want to see this in, please leave it in the comments below, and I'll try to fulfill your request. Whatever the majority is, I'll try to do it in that. If not, I'll probably just do it in like Node.js if nobody says anything. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.